Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you agreed to something you never wanted? Like someone twisted your words, flipped the truth, and somehow made you feel guilty for saying no? That's not coincidence, that's manipulation. And in a world where people use charm, guilt, or authority to control you, the only way to win is to learn how to outsmart them. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of strategy and power, to uncover 7 genius ways to beat manipulators at their own game without losing your integrity. Manipulators feed on emotions. They thrive when you're defensive, guilty, or angry. Machiavelli believed that true power belongs to those who stay calm while others lose control. When someone tries to push your buttons, pause before reacting. Notice what they're doing. They want a reaction, not a resolution. Instead of snapping back or explaining yourself endlessly, stay silent for a moment. The silence unsettles them. It breaks their rhythm. It shows that you can't be baited easily. The more you control your emotions, the less control they have over you. Think about it. How many times have you given in just to keep the peace? That's exactly how manipulators win. But when you detach emotionally, you stop being predictable. You begin to observe, analyze, and respond with logic instead of impulse. You shift from being their target to being their equal. And in that calm, they lose their power. The second way to outsmart manipulators is to control the narrative. Machiavelli said it's not enough to be good. You must appear good. Manipulators rewrite stories to make themselves the hero and you the villain. They'll twist your words, exaggerate mistakes, and spread half. So, you get ahead of the story. Be clear about what you say and why. When a situation feels confusing, state your truth calmly and early. Here's what I meant. Here's what happened. When you set the narrative first, others will remember your version, not theirs. Don't argue emotionally or over-explain. That just gives them more ammunition. Be precise and confident. When you speak with clarity and calmness, people sense truth. Perception is power, and once you control it, manipulators lose their grip. They rely on chaos, so your composure becomes your greatest weapon. The third strategy is setting unbreakable boundaries. Machiavelli warned that generosity and kindness can be exploited. Manipulators often disguise control as care. I'm just helping you, or you owe me. But kindness without boundaries invites abuse. You must draw lines they can't cross. Say no without guilt. Explain less. Defend less. The moment you justify a boundary, you give them room to argue it. Boundaries aren't negotiations. They're declarations. People may call you cold or selfish when you stop giving them free access to your energy. Ignore it. Those who truly respect you will adapt. Those who manipulate will leave. And that's your victory. You cannot be used if you decide what is and isn't acceptable in your world. The fourth way is to use information wisely. Machiavelli taught that knowledge is power, but revealing everything is weakness. Manipulators often pretend to confide in you, only to gather information about your fears, dreams, and insecurities. They store it to use against you later. Don't hand them your blueprint. Speak less than you know. Listen more than you speak. Let them reveal themselves while you stay a mystery. When you withhold certain details, your plans, your struggles, your exact thoughts, you maintain leverage. They can't play chess with someone whose moves they can't predict. Share selectively. Speak strategically. The less they know, the less they can twist. Fifth, learn to mirror their awareness, not their tactics. Machiavelli said to study human nature, not to hate it, but to master it. Manipulators often project confidence, charm, and certainty. They read people's desires and use them as tools. You must do the same, but ethically. Observe patterns. Notice how people react to praise, pressure, or silence. When you understand motivation, you predict behavior. And when you can predict, you can protect. Don't try to beat manipulators by manipulating back. That traps you in their game. Outsmart them by stepping above the game. Use awareness as armor, not as a weapon. Once you see their tactics, guilt, flattery, blame shifting, you'll stop falling for them. You'll respond to what's real, not what's performed. The sixth principle is to never fight every battle. Machiavelli believed that timing is everything. Manipulators want immediate reactions. They provoke to make you act impulsively. But real power lies in patience. You don't need to respond to every insult, defend every rumor, or explain every choice. Sometimes, silence says more than any defense. It confuses them. It denies them attention. It signals control. When you choose your battles wisely, You conserve energy and maintain authority. People who argue less, observe more, and act strategically are always underestimated until they make their move. So hold your power until it matters most. Let small manipulations fade. Save your strength for moments that truly count. The final and most powerful tactic becomes Machiavelli believed the most independent rulers were the most secure. Manipulators succeed when you depend on them emotionally, financially, or socially. They make you feel like you need their approval or help. Break that chain. Build your own confidence, your own network, your own resources. The less you need. So next time someone tries to twist your words or guilt you into submission, smile inwardly. Because now, you know the game they're playing and you have the playbook. You're no longer the target. You're the strategist. And in the end, the one who sees clearly always wins. But here's what it gets deeper. Machiavelli never said power comes from cruelty. He said it comes from clarity. He believed people are driven by fear, desire, and self. Once you see what drives someone, you stop taking their actions personally. That's your real shield, understanding motive. A manipulator may act out of insecurity, jealousy, or hunger for control. You don't need to fix them. You just need to read them. When you understand motive, you can predict behavior. For example, a coworker who flatters you constantly might be building trust to later exploit it. A friend who guilt trips you might fear losing influence over you. Once you identify the why, their tactics lose their bite. Machiavelli would say, don't waste energy fighting shadows. Study the light that casts them. Another layer of outsmarting manipulators is strategic silence. In The Art of War, which complements Machiavelli's ideas, Sun Tzu said, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. When a manipulator tries to stir chaos, step back. Let their patterns reveal themselves. People eventually expose their own games when given space. Silence becomes your trap, and they walk right into it. Consider this. In a negotiation, the one who speaks less often controls more. The manipulator expects reaction, anger, defense, explanation. When you don't give it, they lose footing. They start over-explaining, revealing their intentions. Machiavelli called this turning power through perception, using patience as a weapon. But being strategic doesn't mean being cold. It means valuing peace over people-pleasing. Machiavelli believed a wise leader should aim to be respected more than loved, because respect endures when affection fades. Similarly, in your personal life, stop trying to win everyone's approval. Manipulators use kindness as a hook. You're such a good person. You wouldn't say no. Once you realize love that demands sacrifice isn't love, it's leverage. You break free. Now let's talk about anticipation. One of Machiavelli's most underrated principles. He said rulers should always prepare for betrayal, not fear it. This doesn't mean living in paranoia. It means being prepared, not surprised. In modern life, that translates to thinking 2 steps ahead. Don't sign a deal without reading every line. Don't share secrets with those who gossip. Don't assume loyalty from someone who benefits from your downfall. It's not cynicism. It's self-defense. You see, manipulators thrive on your unaware. They count on you being too trusting, too hopeful. Machiavelli teaches that the world is not as it should be, but as it is. Accepting that truth gives you power. When you expect manipulation, you stop being shocked by it. You become proactive, not reactive. Another genius Machiavellian mindset is controlled unpredictability. When manipulators can't predict your reactions, they can't plan their games. Sometimes, be warm. Other times, be distant. Don't always explain your moves. The less predictable you are, the harder it is for anyone to corner you. Power often comes not from strength, but from mystery. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." In our world, that translates to being respected because people know they can't play you. Let's bring this into a real-life example. Imagine a colleague constantly shifting blame. Every time something goes wrong, they subtly point fingers, making you doubt yourself. A reactive person argues every time, feeding the manipulator's control. A strategic person observes, collects proof, stays calm, and when the moment's right, reveals facts with precision. One move, one truth, checkmate. That's how Machiavellian intelligence works. Not through chaos, but through calculated timing. And let's address the myth. Machiavelli isn't about evil. He's about awareness. He never told people to be ruthless without cause. He told them to be realistic. To survive manipulation, you must see human nature as it is, complex, flawed, self-interested. When you stop expecting fairness from everyone, You stop giving them free access to your trust. You learn to test people, not just trust them blindly. Now, think about your own life. Who drains your energy? Who leaves you confused after every conversation? Whose is flattery, guilt, or silence to get their way? These are your foxes in disguise. But the good news is, you don't have to expose them to beat them. You just have to stop playing their game. Start by anchoring yourself. Build habits that make you emotionally independent. Journaling, reflection, strong friendships, inner clarity. The stronger your core, the weaker their influence. A manipulator's power comes from your confusion. Your weapon is your clarity. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors the bold in modern life. Fortune favors the aware." Awareness isn't paranoia. It's preparation. When you see the trap, you walk around it. When you know the tactic, you refuse debate. That's how you shift from victim to strategist. So remember, emotional detachment gives you vision. Controlling the narrative gives you influence. Boundaries give you protection. Silence gives you power. Awareness gives you freedom. And independence gives you peace. This is the Machiavellian way, not to dominate others, but to guard your mind from domination. Manipulators want to make you doubt yourself, but Machiavelli's wisdom gives you the clarity to trust your instincts again. You don't need to be cruel. You just need to be clear. And clarity, in a world full of deception, is the ultimate power. So ask yourself, are you playing the game or being played? Because once you learn these tactics, the choice is yours. Stay wise, stay calm, and never forget, the fox sees the trap and the lion walks away from it. So ask yourself, are you playing the game or being played? Because once you learn these tactics, the choice is yours. Stay wise, stay calm, and never forget the fox sees the trap and the lion walks away from it. Now, here's the truth. Most people ignore. Manipulators aren't always villains. Sometimes they're friends, partners, even family, people who don't realize their behavior is controlling. Machiavelli would remind us power exists in every relationship. The key is balance. When power becomes one-sided, manipulation begins. The goal isn't to destroy people, it's to restore equality. You're not trying to conquer, you're trying to stop being conquered. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when your heart screamed no? How often have you explained your boundaries just to be told you're overreacting? How often have you forgiven the same betrayal because they cried or promised change? That cycle ends the day you choose self-respect over approval. Machiavelli said, "He who builds on the people builds on mud." Don't build your worth on shifting opinions. Build it on stone, your values, your awareness, your control. And control isn't cruelty. Control is calm. It's knowing when to speak, when to walk away, and when silence is louder than words. A manipulator wants chaos. You give them composure. They want guilt. You offer clarity. They want you to chase validation. You stand still and watch them run out of tricks. Because when you stop reacting, they stop winning. But here's the deeper layer. Manipulation ends when self-awareness begins. You must study not only their tactics, but your triggers. What makes you easy to influence? Is it your need to please? Your fear of conflict? Your hope to be loved? Machiavelli's brilliance lies not just in understanding others, but in mastering oneself. If you know what drives you, no one can drive you against your will. Start observing your emotional reactions. When someone says, "I thought you cared about me," and you instantly feel guilt, pause. Ask, why do I feel responsible for their feelings? When someone flatters you right before asking for a favor, question the timing. The moment you start noticing patterns, you're no longer their pawn. You're the player reading the board. Machiavelli also warned that too much mercy can destroy you. Those who are overly kind invite betrayal. It doesn't mean you become cruel. It means you become selectively kind. Give trust only to those who earn it. Forgive without re-entry. Help without surrender. Love without blindness. Because the world respects boundaries more than apologies. And in modern life, manipulation wears many masks. In workplaces, it's the colleague who takes credit for your ideas. In relationships, it's the partner who uses love as leverage. In friendships, it's the one who always needs help but disappears when you do. The forms change, but the pattern remains: emotional leverage, silent control, hidden agendas. You don't need to fight them all. You just need to see them clearly. Clarity turns every trap into a lesson. Let's borrow one of Machiavelli's timeless strategies. Leverage unpredictability. When others think they can predict you, they plan your defeat. But when you shift your rhythm, change your tone, and act unexpectedly, you break their map. Be kind, but firm. Be open, but private. Help, but only once. Let them never know what you'll do next. Only that, whatever you do, it's intentional. That aura of control is unshakable. And remember, silence is not weakness. It's a sword. Sometimes walking away says, "You can't manipulate me." Sometimes a pause before replying says, "I'm not reacting, I'm thinking." Machiavelli understood that the quietest moment can hold the most power. When a manipulator expects noise and receives calm, their script collapses. Here's the paradox. When you learn Machiavelli's tactics, you don't become ruthless. You become free. Free from guilt traps. Free from emotional blackmail. Free from fear of rejection. Because you finally realize people can only control what you hand them. If you don't hand them your emotions, your secrets, or your validation, they have nothing left to hold. And with freedom comes strength. You start walking differently, speaking differently, choosing differently. You stop explaining every no. You stop apologizing for self-respect. You stop needing to prove goodness. You start valuing peace over approval. And suddenly, manipulators lose interest because you're no longer feeding the game. Machiavelli believed that the greatest rulers were those who understood both human nature and their own. To outsmart manipulation, you must master both. Know what people want and what you want. Know their tactics and your boundaries. Know their words, but trust their actions. Because manipulation always hides behind language, but never behind patterns. Once you see the pattern, you hold the truth. Let's anchor this with a story. Imagine a ruler surrounded by advisors. Some praise him endlessly, others criticize him softly. The praise is intoxicating, the criticism irritating. But Machiavelli would whisper, "The flatterer wants favor, the critic wants truth." The wise ruler listens to both, trusts neither blindly, and makes his own decision. You are that ruler. Your life is your kingdom. Listen, observe, but decide for yourself. So, how do you live Machiavellian wisdom in a moral world? By combining cunning with compassion, awareness with authenticity. You don't lie, but you recognize lies. You don't manipulate, but you read manipulation. You don't dominate, but you never surrender your power. You become both fox and lion, intelligent and bold, strategic and strong. In the end, this isn't about winning over others. It's about winning over yourself. The manipulator's greatest weapon is your doubt. Their victory is your confusion, but your greatest weapon is awareness. And your victory is peace. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, the manipulators vanish like smoke, because they can only exist in the fog of your uncertainty. So step into clarity. Speak truth quietly. Set boundaries firmly. Walk away gracefully. Forgive wisely. And always, always protect your peace. Because Machiavelli's ultimate lesson is not just about power, it's about sovereignty. To rule your own mind, your own choices, your own destiny. Now, look around your life. Where are the traps? Who benefits from your guilt? Who drains your calm? See them, name them, and choose differently. Because once you see manipulation, it loses its magic. The game ends when you stop playing. So tell me, which of these truths hit you hardest? Have you seen these tactics in your life? And how will you apply Machiavelli's wisdom from now on? Share your story in the comments. Your insight might help someone else break free. And if you found power in these words, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe for more strategies that sharpen your mind and protect your peace. Because in a world full of foxes and wolves, you deserve to walk as both wise and unbreakable. Remember, awareness is armor. Calm is control. Clarity is freedom. And once you master these, no manipulator, no matter how clever, can ever rule your mind again.